I was mid-bite on my burger when two cops cuffed me like I was public enemy number one. Cold fries, a blurry video, and then the bombshell. My dad. Yeah, that dad. Look, I'll be honest. My day started pretty damn great. The sun was out, the subway wasn't its usual death trap of sweat and bad decisions, and I even nailed my presentation on renewable energy in class. Not to brag, but I was feeling like the next Elon Musk, minus the Twitter chaos. Anyway, the plan was simple. Grab some food at the mall's food court, chill for an hour, and then head back home to dive into homework. Easy, right? Yeah, that's what I thought too. But apparently life had other plans. So there I was, sitting in the corner of the food court at the biggest mall in downtown Brooklyn. I'd just bitten into my McDonald's cheeseburger, the kind that always tastes better when you know it's terrible for you, when I noticed two cops strolling in. Now, normally I wouldn't give a damn. Cops in a mall are like pigeons in the park, annoying but harmless. Except this time something felt off. You know that feeling you get when someone's staring at you like you owe them money? Yeah, that's exactly the vibe. The taller cop, let's call him Officer Buzzkill, locked eyes with me. I tried to play it cool, but let's be real. There's no chill when a dude with a badge is giving you the stink eye over your fries. His partner, Officer Mustache, whispered something to him, and before I could even blink, they were marching straight towards me. "Hey, kid," Buzzkill barked, his voice loud enough to make the toddler at the next table start crying. "Stand up." Now, I'm not the type to cause a scene, but this was straight up weird. I mean, what the hell does a guy have to do to eat his burger in peace these days? Excuse me? I said, half chewing, half panicking. Is there a problem? Yeah, there's a problem, Mustache chimed in, pulling out a pair of handcuffs like he was auditioning for an action movie. You're under arrest. Okay, pause. Under arrest? For what? Eating too much ketchup? I stared at them, waiting for someone to yell, "Just kidding." Spoiler alert, they didn't. You've got the wrong guy, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, even though my heart was doing somersaults. I haven't done anything. Save it for the station, Buzzkill snapped. Stand up and turn around. At this point, the whole food court had gone dead silent. People were watching, phones were out, and I was one awkward move away from being the next viral video. The worst part? My McDonald's was getting cold. You ever try to eat a cold cheeseburger? It's like chewing regret. Anyway, they yanked me up, slapped the cuffs on my wrists, and dragged me out like I'd just confessed to robbing a bank. I could feel the stares burning into my back. One guy even muttered, "What did he do?" Bro, I'd love to know the same thing. Outside, the cops shoved me into the back of their cruiser. The seats were hard plastic, and the smell? Let's just say it was a mix of old sweat and bad decisions. Buzzkill turned around and smirked at me through the cage. "You think you're real slick, huh?" he said. "I think you've got the wrong guy," I shot back, because duh, they did. "Oh, we've got you all right," Mustache added, pulling out a tablet and shoving it through the partition. "See this? That's you stealing from a store here last week?" I leaned forward and squinted at the grainy footage. Sure, the guy in the hoodie kind of looked like me, but last week I was in class. I tried to explain that, but Buzzkill just laughed. "Yeah, right," he said. "Let me guess, you've got an alibi? Maybe your mom will write you a note." Now here's the thing. I could have flipped out. I could have yelled, screamed, maybe even kicked the seat, but instead, I just sat back and let out a bitter laugh. Because in that moment, I realized something. It didn't matter what I said. To them, I was just another black kid who looked guilty enough to make their day easier. "You done?" I said, meeting Buzzkill's eyes in the mirror. "Because I've got fries getting cold back there." His smirk faded. Good. That's the thing about people like that. They think they've got all the power until you remind them they're not as scary as they think. But me? I was scared shitless. I just wasn't about to let them see it. So there I was, handcuffed, humiliated, and headed to God knows where. And the craziest part, this was just the beginning. You ever been in a car ride so tense you could actually feel your heartbeat in your teeth? That was me, sitting in the back of the cruiser, hands cuffed, trying to piece together what the hell just happened. The seats were hard as rocks, and the smell? Let's just say the last passenger wasn't exactly a fan of deodorant. Buzzkill and Mustache, my two new best friends, were up front. They weren't talking much, but I could feel their judgment from the front seat. It was like they had already decided I was guilty of something. Eating my burger too aggressively, maybe. Finally, Buzzkill decided to break the silence. "You think this is some kind of joke?" he said, glaring at me through the rearview mirror. His voice had that "don't mess with me" edge that cops probably practice in the mirror. I leaned back, trying to stay calm even though my pulse was doing the cha-cha. "A joke? Nah, this is pure comedy gold. You should sell tickets." Mustache let out a little snort but quickly covered it with a cough. Buzzkill wasn't amused. You can keep running your mouth, he said, gripping the wheel like it had personally insulted him. But it's not going to help you. You're in deep, kid. Deep? I shot back. The only thing I'm deep in is confusion. Seriously, what the hell did I even do? Mustache twisted around in his seat, holding up a tablet with some grainy footage on it. See that? That's you, last week, stealing from a store in this very mall. I leaned forward, squinting at the screen. The video was terrible. All pixels and shadows. Sure, the guy in the hoodie could have been me, if you squinted hard enough and didn't believe in logic. You've got to be kidding me, I said, staring at them both. That's your proof? A video so blurry it could be Bigfoot? I wasn't even at the mall last week. Buzzkill rolled his eyes. Yeah, sure. Let me guess. You were volunteering at a soup kitchen, right? No, I snapped. I was in class. You know, like a normal college student. But hey, don't let facts get in the way of your little power trip. Mustache shook his head, muttering something under his breath, and Buzzkill just tightened his grip on the wheel. Clearly, I wasn't winning any popularity contests here. We pulled up to the station, a squat, ugly building that looked like it was held together with duct tape and disappointment. Buzzkill yanked me out of the car, his grip just a little too tight, and dragged me inside. The fluorescent lights were harsh. The air smelled like stale coffee, and the walls were covered in those motivational posters that do the exact opposite. As we walked through the station, I could feel all the eyes on me. Cops stared, some whispered, and one guy straight up laughed. I wanted to yell, to explain that they had the wrong guy, but what was the point? They'd already decided I was guilty. Buzzkill and Mustache led me into a tiny, grimy interrogation room. The table wobbled, the chair squeaked, and the light above me flickered like it was auditioning for a horror movie. They sat across from me, looking like they were about to drop the hammer. All right, Buzzkill said, leaning forward. Where were you last Thursday at 3 p.m.? In class, I said for what felt like the millionth time. Mustache raised an eyebrow. You got anyone who can back that up? Yeah, I said. My professor, my classmates, literally anyone who's not you two. Buzzkill smirked. Cute, you own a gray hoodie? No, I said, my patience wearing thinner than the McDonald's napkins they interrupted me from using. Mustache leaned in, his voice dropping to that fake friendly tone that cops think is intimidating. Look, kid, the more you lie, the worse this gets for you. Oh, I'm sorry, I said, dripping with sarcasm. I didn't realize telling the truth counted as lying these days. My bad. Buzzkill slammed his hand on the table, making me jump. You think this is a game? No, I said, meeting his glare. But you clearly do. That shut him up. For a second, anyway. They left me alone in the room, probably hoping I'd break down or confess to a crime I didn't commit. Instead, I sat there, staring at the stained walls and thinking about my mom. She'd always warned me about stuff like this. Keep your head down, she'd say. Stay out of trouble. But what the hell are you supposed to do when trouble comes looking for you? After what felt like hours, another cop walked in. He was older, with tired eyes and a badge that looked like it weighed more than him. He sat down across from me, his voice softer than Buzzkill's. Listen, he said, rubbing his temples. If you're innocent, we'll figure it out. Just cooperate, all right? I wanted to believe him, I really did. But after everything I'd just been through, trust wasn't exactly high on my list. Sure, I said, leaning back in the squeaky chair. Let me know how that goes. He sighed, like he'd heard it all before, and left the room. And me? I was left to stew in my frustration, wondering how the hell I ended up here. But one thing was crystal clear. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. If you've never been stuck in a holding cell with a bunch of strangers who look like extras from a prison drama, let me tell you, it's not exactly a vibe. The smell of sweat, cheap cologne, and regret filled the air, and the bench I was sitting on felt like it was carved out of pure discomfort. Every so often, one of the other guys in the cell would glance at me, like they were trying to figure out if I was worth talking to. Spoiler, I wasn't. But the real kicker? I still had no idea what was going on. Sure, I'd been arrested, humiliated, and interrogated, but nobody had actually bothered to tell me what was supposed to happen next. I was just left there, stewing in my own frustration, wondering how my day had gone from a peaceful burger to this. Asterisk. And then, like the cherry on top of the world's shittiest sundae, Buzzkill strutted back in. He was holding a folder and wearing the kind of smug grin that made me want to throw something at him. Well, well, he said, flipping through the papers like he was starring in a cop show. Looks like your story doesn't check out, kid. I raised an eyebrow, my patience hanging by a thread. Really? Did you talk to my professor, my classmates? Or are you just making stuff up for fun now? Buzzkill ignored me, of course. We've got witnesses who say you were at the mall last week, hanging around near the store that got hit. Witnesses? I repeated, laughing bitterly. Let me guess. They all have 20/20th's vision and perfect memory, right? You want to keep being a smartass? He snapped, leaning in like he thought he was intimidating. Because that's not going to help you. Oh, I'm sorry, I shot back. I didn't realize being falsely accused came with a be polite to your accuser's policy. My bad. Buzzkill's face turned red, and for a second I thought he might actually lose it. But before he could say anything, the door swung open and in walked someone new. This guy was different. He was tall, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my rent, and had an air of authority that immediately filled the room. He didn't even look at Buzzkill. His eyes went straight to me. "Justin Harris?" he asked, his tone calm but firm. "That's me," I said, sitting up straighter. "Who's asking?" "My name is Marcus Daniels," he said, pulling out a business card and handing it to me. "I'm your lawyer. Wait, asterisk." "What? Asterisk?" I blinked, staring at the card like it might burst into flames. "My lawyer? I didn't call a lawyer." "You didn't have to," Marcus said, his expression unreadable. "Someone else did." "Who?" I asked, completely thrown off. Marcus glanced at Buzzkill, who looked like he'd just swallowed a lemon. "Let's just say you've got friends in high places." That's when things got really interesting. Buzzkill tried to argue, of course. "We've got evidence," he said, waving his folder like it was the Holy Grail. "This kid matches the description, and we've got witnesses." Marcus held up a hand, cutting him off mid-sentence. "Save it. I've already reviewed the footage, and unless your department has developed a magical way to make blurry pixels admissible in court, you don't have a case." Buzzkill sputtered, his face turning an even deeper shade of red. "This isn't over," he muttered, storming out of the room like a kid who just lost a game of Monopoly. Marcus turned back to me, his expression softening. "You all right?" I shrugged, trying to play it cool even though my heart was still racing. "I've been better, so who sent you?" He hesitated for a moment, then said, "Your father." And just like that, the air in the room shifted. My stomach dropped, my brain short-circuited, and for a solid 10 seconds I forgot how to breathe. "My father?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "You must have the wrong guy. My dad, he's not exactly in the picture." Marcus smiled faintly like he'd been expecting that reaction. "Trust me, he's in the picture now. He'll be here soon." Before I could process what that meant, the door opened again, and in walked a man I never expected to see. Sitting in that holding cell was like being in the world's shittiest waiting room. The bench was stiff, the air was thick, and the guy next to me kept muttering to himself about someone named Big Lou. Trust me, I didn't ask. I was too busy trying to figure out how my life had turned into a live episode of Cops. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, in walked Buzzkill. He had that "I'm about to ruin your day" swagger and a folder tucked under his arm. "Guess what, kid?" he said, smirking. "Your story doesn't check out." "Oh, really?" I shot back, crossing my arms. "Did you actually check, or are you just here to practice being wrong?" His smirk twitched, and he slapped the folder onto the table. "Witnesses placed you at the mall last week. Looks pretty bad for you." "Witnesses?" I laughed, shaking my head. "Was it the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny? Because that's the only way this gets any more ridiculous." Buzzkill leaned in, trying to intimidate me. "Keep talking. It's not going to help you." "Oh, don't worry," I said, grinning. "I've got plenty to say." Before he could fire back, the door opened and in walked a guy in a suit so sharp it probably had its own security detail. He didn't even glance at Buzzkill. His eyes were locked on me. "Justin Harris?" he asked. "Yeah, that's me," I said warily. "Who's asking?" "Marcus Daniels," he said, handing me a card. "Your lawyer." "Hold up." "My lawyer?" I hadn't called anyone. My confusion must have shown because Marcus added, "Don't worry, you didn't call me. Someone else did." "Who?" I asked. Marcus smiled faintly like he knew a secret I didn't. "Let's just say it's someone who cares." Buzzkill wasn't having it. "We've got evidence," he barked, waving his precious folder. "This kid matches the description, and we've got witnesses." "Stop right there," Marcus said, holding up a hand. "I've reviewed your evidence, and unless blurry footage is admissible in court now, you've got nothing." Buzzkill froze, clearly out of his depth. He muttered something about procedures and stormed out of the room. Good riddance. Once he was gone, Marcus turned back to me. "You all right?" "Depends," I said, narrowing my eyes. "Who sent you?" He hesitated, then said two words that hit like a punch to the gut. "Your father." I blinked, my brain struggling to keep up. "My father? You've got the wrong guy. My dad's not exactly around." Marcus's smile widened just a little. "Oh, he's around. In fact, he'll be here any minute." And just like that, my whole world flipped upside down. Again.